Hello and welcome. We are going to cover the, third or final element of building out this Active Directory practice set for your OSCP. We've done it with ESXi that you can access remotely, as well as running locally on VMware Fusion. We've also covered how to build this out in VirtualBox. So I guess the last one, and I saw a request come in for this as well, is how to build this out on Windows using VMware Workstation Pro. So it's not necessarily my preferred way to build it out, but if you're going to do it, well, I might as well show it. And again, I'll try and show both mechanisms. The simple diagram where Kali is directly connected, so no OpenVPN, and then I'll try and also build this out with OpenVPN involved. Again, the actual configuration of these is going to be identical as far as the operating system and the install and the software is identical across all of my installs. The big difference here is just the underlying, how do we configure the hypervisor layer? So in this case, how are we going to cover, or how are we going to configure VMware Workstation Pro? So with that, let's go ahead and kick things off. I remote desktoped into my Windows 10 machine. Went in and just finished downloading the latest Kali virtual machine image. So I went down here and downloaded the 64-bit VMware 64 version of the virtual machine. And here are my machine images that you can see here. So I've got my Windows 10, my Windows Server 2019, and my Kali image. And I'm going to go ahead and just double click on VMX, which will ask, let's go ahead and open that with VMware Workstation. And here it loaded in, and just to show, here's the version of VMware Workstation that we have installed. I'm just running the Eval copy. And from a Windows standpoint, this is not a resource-intensive machine. It's an AMD box, so it's an AMD laptop actually, with only 8 gigs of memory. So I'm not going to be able to run all my virtual machines concurrently, but we'll see how far we can stretch it. Again, you're hopefully building this out on a machine that has minimum of 16, but ideally 32 gigs of memory, and plenty of CPU horsepower to go with it. So here you can see it added this in, memory 2 gigs, 4 processors. So all of this is fine, but what we need to change is going to be the adapters. So while yes, we want one of these that's not shown to be able to get out to the internet and do NAT, we're also going to need to attach a second interface that is to this outside subnet. So we'll go in here, we'll go ahead and right click and say settings. Here's our original network adapter using NAT. What we're going to do is go ahead and say add network adapter. And we'll go ahead and change this to a LAN segment. And you'll notice that there's nothing populated here. We'll go ahead and click on LAN segments. We can say add, and we'll just call this OSCP-outside. And we can also add OSCP-inside, but we're going to specifically choose the outside one for this interface. And there we have it selected, and we'll go ahead and say OK. And at this point, we should be able to go ahead and boot up Kali and let it get all loaded and set up from its initial boot. Again, nothing special about this, so we'll just wait for it to come up and change some network settings. So here at the login screen, we'll go ahead and log in with the default Kali. And up here you'll see the little spinning icon for the network adapters. We can right click on that and say edit connections. And wired connection number 2, we'll double click to edit that. And we'll set the IPv4 settings to manual. And again, we're going to want to choose this one as 192.168.100.10. And it's a /24 network mask, and we don't need a gateway or DNS servers or anything else. We'll just hit save and close that. And to double check, we can bring up our terminal, do IP-4 AD for address. Oh, looks like we're going to need to restart our network settings. When in doubt, I'll just do a reboot now. You could have also just probably flapped the interface up and down. But I like to do this as also just a validation to test that when it reboots, it will also have the right settings. And here we'll get logged in once more. Open up our terminal. Check our interfaces, and sure enough, there is ETH1 with a 192.168.100.10. Here's our loopback address built in, and here's our NATed address that should get us out to the internet. And if we double check this against our route table, sure enough, our default route is out that interface of ETH0. So everything looks good here on our Kali machine. Go ahead and shut this down. Don't need to use it right now. We'll conserve our memory because now we're going to go ahead and go back to VMs. Oops. Don't show. Because now we're ready to create MS01. So we'll go ahead and go here, go to VM. Well, actually not VM. Let's go ahead and go over here to File, New Virtual Machine. And in this case, again, I like to do advanced. I like full control over everything. And we'll actually, I guess in this case, we could say typical. And I'll install the operating system later. And Windows 10 x64. We'll call this one MS01. Sure, it can have 60 gigs. And then I'll just say customize hardware. So here 2 gigs is fine because I'm a little bit conservative on this machine. I don't have a lot to give, but I am going to change the network adapter. And from NAT, we're going to change this to LAN segment and OSCP outside. And then we can also add a second network adapter. And this one we will put on the OSCP inside. So LAN 0 is outside, LAN 1 is inside. And we'll go ahead and say, actually I guess we can go here to use an ISO image. I will say browse. I'll navigate to where my ISO images are. So here I'll pick out Windows 10 1909. And just go ahead and say close and finish. And at this point now we can go ahead and start this machine up. And hit our buttons to get it going. And again, this is going to be identical to the rest of our setups. We're just going to get Windows installed. So I'll go ahead and pause it here, finish the install, and we'll come back after it's all done. And we are at the desktop finally. So as per my usual install, I installed Windows 10 Professional. I chose to install on the whole disk. I used the delete me with no password as my user account. And we're now currently just sitting at the desktop. So now what we need to do is install the VMware tools. So I believe when you say I finished installing here, it should pop up and, oh, maybe not. All right, so what we'll do here is I'll right click and I'll just say eject, and then we'll go to VM, install VMware tools, and then go ahead and double click and run the VMware tools installer. And again, I just run it with the defaults for all of this. And I'll typically go ahead and change the computer name at the same time. And then after it reboots, we'll go ahead and change the network adapter settings to make sure that that's all squared away as well. And as you can see, we just finished installing the VM tools, got our desktop, and we're going to go ahead and reboot. While it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and load up Kali so that we can test our ping connectivity, since we know that the Kali interfaces are set correctly between the outside and the NATed address. And we're back at our desktop, so let's go ahead and change our network settings. So we'll go ahead and say change adapter options, and the first interface, or Ethernet 0, should be our outside interface. So we'll disable v6, configure v4. This will be our 192.168.100.201. Yep, right there. And it'll be a /24, so 255.255.255.0, no gateway, no DNS server. So we'll go ahead and say OK and OK. And then let's go ahead and test that. So we'll just open up command prompt. Maybe. And just do ping 192.168.100.10, which is our Kali machine. And sure enough, we can hit our Kali box. We get a response. So we know we've got that interface set up properly. We'll go ahead and do Ethernet 1, which is our inside. So we'll right click, go to properties, disable v6, double click v4, and this one will be our 10.10.1.201 address. And same thing, it's a /24 subnet, but we do want to add in the DC01 address. So that's going to be 10.10.1.200. That is this guy right here. Go ahead and say OK and OK. And at that point, this guy is set and ready to go. Everything else will be customized to the setup that you want, so you can follow the rest of the guides. We'll go ahead and continue on with setting up MSO2. So in this case, we would say for MSO2, we would go to File, New Virtual Machine. And again, I could say typical. I'll install it later. Windows 10. We'll call this one MSO2. And this is fine. Customize hardware. And here what we would do is, similarly, we would mount the ISO image that we want. In this case, for me, it would be build 2004. And change the network adapter to LAN segment and OSCP inside, because this guy is going to exist right here in the 10.10.1 subnet. And we'll go ahead and say close and finish. And then at that point, we'd be able to go ahead and power that one on and get it installing. And I'm going to go ahead and shut down Kali to... Let's go ahead and get this installer going. And I'm going to shut down Kali just to save on my poor memory resources that I don't have enough of on this machine, just so I can show you all of this. So the build for MSO2 would follow the same process, because we've got the interface all set up there. So then the last machine we would need to build would be DC01. And here I would say don't have a product key, etc., etc. I'm going to go ahead and pause this, because there's nothing else special about setting up MSO2. So then the last one we need to do is DC01. So for DC01, same thing, typical, install later. In this case, instead of Windows 10 x64, I would end up choosing Server 2019. You can use whatever flavor you want. I would say DC01. Leave the rest of these at defaults, customize hardware. Similarly, go to the network adapter, change it to the OSCP inside LAN segment, and then go ahead and mount the ISO image. And in this case, it's going to be my Server 2019 image. And close and finish. And then I would start this one up and let its installer get going. Again, following the same guide that we've been using for the other Active Directory set creation or configurations. So that is how you configure the network adapter settings and the hypervisor settings that you need for an Active Directory set to build out this architecture. So now it's time for the bonus material. Let's go ahead and add that complexity, and let's shift from Kali being directly connected to the outside network to needing to VPN in. So let's add in OpenVPN. To do that, we're going to need to start by going back over to our Kali box, edit the virtual machine settings, and we're going to, in this case, you can either disable, or in my case, I'm just going to remove the second network adapter that's directly connected to the outside. So now we're just left with the first network adapter that's at the default settings of just NAT. You could also set this to bridged if you want, but either NAT or bridged will work just fine. And say OK. And then next what we need to do is actually build out our OpenVPN server, which is going to be built on Ubuntu. And we're going to go ahead and go up to File and New Virtual Machine. Typical is fine. I'll install the OS later. In this case, we're going to choose Linux and Ubuntu. And we'll call it OpenVPN. 20 gigs is fine. And in this case, we'll customize hardware. And what we're going to change, well, first of all, we'll go ahead and mount the ISO image. So this would be our Ubuntu 2204.3 for me. And we'll go to network adapter, and we're going to change this to, in this case, we're going to make this network adapter bridged so that it gets a IP that our Kali box will be able to hit. Again, you'll be bridging it to your host's network adapter. So in my case, it's going to get bridged to the wireless adapter of my laptop's network card, or say the wireless network card of my laptop. And what we do need to add in, however, is the second network adapter that for OpenVPN that's going to be on the outside subnet. So we'll go ahead and say add network adapter. In this one, we're going to go ahead and attach to the LAN segment OSCP outside. Say close and finish, and power this puppy on. And again, nothing super fantastic or unique about this. You can replicate this same process by looking at any of the other install videos. In this case, unlike the Windows machines, I guess I'll go ahead and record some of it. So of course I'll say English, continue without updating, done, Ubuntu server, and here you can see it already got attached to my bridged interface with the 10.1.2.202, but the second one is attached to the OSCP outside subnet, so we need to manually configure that. Edit IPv4, manual, subnets 192.168.100.0/24, address is 192.168.100.199, no gateway, no name servers, no search domains. Save, continue, done, 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 and continue. For the name, in this case, I'll just use OSCP as my username, OpenVPN as my server name, and OSCP as my username. can skip that. Yeah, let's go ahead and install OpenSSH just in case we need to SSH in, and let it run. And now that it's done installing, we'll go ahead and say reboot now. Okay, now that we're at the login screen, I'll go ahead and log in as OSCP. And here we can see it finished installing our OpenSSH and getting SSH keys. Don't steal my SSH key. It's top secret. So at this point, let's see if we, as long as we have the ability to copy and paste, let's find out. So what if we type in IP add, copy, paste? Ooh, okay. So I don't even have to install tools for that. I'll just say I finished installing. Wonderful. So in this case, what we'll need to do is go ahead and pull up our OpenVPN install guide. And here's our install guide. Here's the URL. Again, you'll typically want to come down here, click on Ubuntu, scroll down, click on install instructions for Ubuntu, and it will get us here where you can click on Linux software package. You'll notice Ubuntu LTS is the most frequently chosen. And here's our step-by-step copy and paste. So we'll copy here, and we'll paste here, maybe. Oh, helps if you run sudo. So we'll just go ahead and run sudo su. Get us directly in with root access, and try that again. Alright, so that finished. We'll go ahead and go to the next step. Copy, paste, and that's just adding a cert to the repository, and then we'll go ahead and add the repo, copy and paste, and then we'll go ahead and update and install. Okay, and sure enough, here we landed, and our admin address and our password are available. Oh, don't steal my password now. So again, you'll want to write this down. I can't copy and paste, so another reason why you may want to do this in SSH instead of directly in the console, so you can copy and paste this easier. But it looks like it's going to be this password. And we'll test it out. So now at this point we can go ahead and go to our Kali machine. Oh, guess we should have powered that on earlier. Make sure MSO1 is also running so that we can test that. We're going to need to go to MSO1, open up a command prompt as administrator, and to test this out, part of the config that you'd be walking through for setting this up with any of these is the route table. So if you type route print, you'll notice that you don't have the ability to get to that 172.16.11 VPN subnet. So we need to add that. So we'll say route add 172.16.11.0 mask is a /24. And to get there, you're going to go to 192.168.100.199. I'll give it a metric of 1 and /p for persistence. So that way, when we say route print, you'll notice it's added in as a persistent route. So persistent upon reboots. At this point, let's make sure we can hit our OpenVPN's not up yet. It will be there. In the meantime, we can go ahead and actually, let's see here. We should be able to test this. There's our 100, 199. So from here, ping. So on MSO1, you should be able to ping 192, 168, 100, 199. Sure enough, great. Now we just need a VPN client. So let's go to our Kali machine. Let's get logged in, go to the desktop, fire up Firefox, pun intended. And we'll go ahead and go in here. We'll go to that address. Let's see, paste. Nope. Well, that'll actually be handy. But no, I believe that was our HTTP. Well, in this case, S. 10.10.1202, I believe it was. And then port 943/admin. Let's see if I got that right. 10.1.2. Oh, dang it. Close but no cigar. Okay, well apparently, helps if you can type things correctly. 10.1.2.202. Sure enough, there's our prompt. And here is our, let's see, the admin for this case is going to be OpenVPN, the default one. And we'll paste in our super tough password. Ah, darn it. OpenVPN. Nope, that's the address. So let's go back here, copy, paste. There we go, that's better. I agree. And now we are in OpenVPN. So all we need to do here very quickly is go to user management, user permissions. Well, first of all, I'm going to change my OpenVPN password so it's not so tough to remember. Save that. Update running server. And then we'll say new username, OSCP. Allow auto logon. And more settings. And then here we can set the password. I'll set it to OSCP. And save settings. Update running server. And then we need to set up our VPN settings. So we'll go to configuration, VPN settings. I'm going to change this to, this is the dynamic IP address network, so I typically will not use it, but 172.16.10.0/24. And then the one we are going to use is the static IP network, so 172.16.11.0/24. And then we'll go down here and change this to the dynamic IP address network, 172.16.10.0/24. Whoops. Come down here, we'll say we do want to route, but with routing, not NAT, because we need to expose the 172.16.11 network. And then what networks do people get access to? It's only going to be the 192.168.100 subnet. And from here, we'll say, let's see, allow access. Should client internet traffic be routed through the VPN? No. We want a split tunnel, not a full tunnel. And then we'll say yes for do not alter the client's DNS server settings. Save that. Update the running server. And then the last thing is we need to static out our user. So we'll go back to user permissions, OSCP, more settings, and scroll down. And here we'll say select IP address, use static 172.16.11.11. Save, update. That should do it. So now at this point, go ahead and open up a new tab, HTTPS 10, use the same VPN server, but don't put a /admin. And here it'll take us to the user login, and we'll do our OSCP user that we just created. and we'll download the auto login profile. And then from here, we can go ahead and open up our terminal and change to our download directory just to test. And we'll say sudo openvpn, and I'll just do *OVPN file. And if we did this correctly, sure enough, net address v4 172.16.11.11 was assigned to tunnel 0. And here we can see the 192.168.100 subnet was added to our route table. And we get initialization sequence completed, and we can see up here in the top right corner our VPN IP has been added. So at this point, we should be able to, for example, go back here to MSO1 and now do a ping 172.16.11.11 to hit our Kali machine, and bang, there it is. So we now have full connectivity between Kali through the VPN to MSO1. So then we can continue to build out the rest of our Active Directory lab and build our compromises. And this is how you would build this out with VMware Workstation Pro on Windows. I hope that helps. Hope you enjoy.